we did originally start, my dad had always loved to play pool. And when I was a kid, I always remember coming downstairs and we had a 9-foot pool table in our basement, and he'd always be hitting balls. And as kids, we'd always watch him play. And my dad's been big into pool his entire life, and our whole family has been big into pool. All of his sisters play, my grandparents play, aunts and uncles, they all play pool. And at the time, we had a hobby farm, and my dad started buying and selling pool cues and selling them to people in Pool League and people we knew that played pool. And at one point, the company that we were buying the cues from had contacted us about buying a lathe. And at that time, I was just a little kid. I was probably 7 years old. And my brother was also big into playing pool. So my dad decided to buy the lathe, and together they started putting on tips and doing cue repair. Then eventually they started trying to take the next step and build a pool cue. And I think the first cue that they ever made was like so crooked that you couldn't really even use it. I think they used it as a fire poker. And it kind of just started the bug of building pool cues. So then, they had to try and better themselves. So they did it again and they did it again. And for about the first 5 years, he had built cues for my grandparents and his sister and his brother, and then eventually started to sell them. And then over the years, things started to grow, where he started doing more cue repair and building more cues for people. And eventually we moved into Nakusa. And at that point, then I started to get into the high school. And I started to take up the game and started to enjoy it. So I would go down to the basement and I would mess around with the lathes and try and build the cue. And through that, I also started to get hooked on the idea of building pool cues. So then over the years, we continued to buy more equipment and try and do it better and build more cues. And it was probably in the early 90s at the point that we decided that this could be a legitimate business, that we could do this for a living. And at that point, my dad was working in the paper mill, and he had a really good job in the mill. And he decided at that point, if he never took the opportunity to try and build cues for a living, that he could be 70, 80 years old and then regret the fact that, well, I had this one shot and I never took it. I really wish I did. So so then one day he just decided to go in and put in his notice and quit. And at that point, everyone thought he was a fool. But his idea behind that was he was burning his bridges, because if he didn't take that shot and if he didn't try and do it as a full-time occupation, that he probably would never take that chance. And then things really started to bloom then. Once he started doing it full-time, we were working together full-time. And we continued to grow. At this point now, we sell cues all over the world. We have customers all over the United States, and we're still continuing to grow. I would say the biggest aspect of the business that's made the biggest impact is just the customer service, being in touch with the customer base. We're constantly talking to the customers that buy our cues to get their feedback, so then we change the product based on their feedback. And just being really active in the market is what's really made us successful.